Welcome to Voice Is, a podcast where we have conversations with people whose voices we love to delve into the good, the bad, and the messy of what makes your voice yours. I'm Julie Fogh.
And I'm Erin Clark. We're co-founders of Vital Voice Training, a voice, public speaking, and communication coaching company out to change the conversation about what your voice is supposed to sound like. Hi, everybody. We are so excited to bring you our very first video edition of Voice Is, the podcast. We have an amazing group of women for you to meet today because we're going to do yet another deep dive. If you know Vital Voice Training, if you know Julie and me, we like to go really deep on big, thorny subjects. We spent last year working on authenticity, and we are spending this year really diving into the idea of executive presence. Julie, why don't you tell them a little bit about why we're talking about executive presence?
So executive presence is this undefined quality. If you look it up, you will see it is undefined, but it's meant to signal who's ready to grow in a leadership role. And we wanted to ask questions like, what exactly is executive presence and who is it for? We often confuse what a leader looks like with what their capacity to lead is. So is it a costume? Is it a concept or something else entirely? And who is doing the gatekeeping to tell you when you have it? We've been working with clients for 7 years, and we've seen firsthand the challenges and impact of executive presence. And we're deeply invested in discovering ways to access it that don't depend on just looking the part. So we put together this diverse panel of awesome women who are in the trenches, each of whom has developed their own unique and powerful style of leadership to unpack this. So to introduce you to our panel, we have Fogh Bagley, who is building the future literally. She is a speaker, educator, and founder of the firm Nonfiction Design, which is taking on everyday things like headphones to furniture, all the way to space architecture to turn science fiction into reality. We also have Kelly Hoey, who's an author, a speaker, community builder, and world-renowned expert in networking, also one of our favorites. She also has an extensive corporate background in both law and finance. We also have Christina Blacken, who is revolutionizing the modern workplace with her company, The New Quo, which is introducing how narrative intelligence can be used to tackle inequities and make work better for everyone. And last but not least, we have Patty Alvarenga, who is on the ground every day running conversations on equity and inclusion that are shaping the future of work with the collective. Patty was part of our Power Play Beyond Executive Presence course, and through our time with her, we were blown away by her brilliance and insight and really wanted to include her in this conversation with these other fabulous women.
So without further ado, let's get to the panel. Everybody to say your name, your title and industry, where you're calling in from, and one interesting fact about you that is not on your resume. So let's start with Kelly.
Of course you did that. So I'm Kelly Hoey. I'm the author of the book Build Your Dream Network, and I am in New York City, which has been home since 1998. I guess you would say I'm in the publishing industry, but maybe it's marketing, and maybe it's who knows when you're advising people on their networks and relationships. One thing about me that's not on my resume, all right, I talk about my age, I talk about my ex-husbands. I own a sewing machine and I know how to use it.
And I've seen the results of that, and it's gorgeous. All right, Fogh, let's go to you next.
All right, my name is Fogh Bagley. I am calling from San Francisco, California. My official title is I'm a partner at a company called Nonfiction, and the industry is the future of everything. Something that's about me that's not on my resume. Um, hmm. I can host 30 people in 2 hours and get everything ready, food wise.
Impressive.
Thumbs way
I
up.
love hosting parties. Yeah.
Love
Wow, I
it.
love that.
Patty, what about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Patty. Title, I'm a senior strategist at Collective, which is a DI consultancy. So we call ourselves a modern diversity, equity, and inclusion company. So we consult tech companies and companies across a wide range of industries on their DI strategies. And I'm calling in from Los Angeles. And something that is not on my resume is that I am an El Salvadorian immigrant. I came to the US when I was 10. And so I consider myself in the hyphen, which is like an in-between of like, American, but El Salvadorian, never a little bit, and a lot of both. So that's a very key part of my personality and self.
Awesome. Christina, finish us off.
Hey y'all, I am Christina Blacken. I am in Brooklyn, New York currently, but originally from Utah. And I run a company called The New Quo. I'm the chief narrative strategist and founder of the organization, and I focus on leadership development and inclusion, particularly using the tool of storytelling to help people to change behavior and to build more inclusive habits that actually stick and last. So it kind of goes across a couple of different industries, DEIB, leadership development, you name it. And something that wasn't on my resume, I was on a reality TV show in 2015, and Laverne Cox was the host, and I got to compete for $10,000, and I won, baby.
What?
It was crazy.
Woo!
It was a crazy
That's amazing.
And it's funny because it was just like this random thing that I took off work for. I was like, yo, I got on this like reality thing, and I take off some time to do it. It was nuts. So I'll have to tell you the full story at some point.
Oh, yes. I want to hear it. Julie, do you want to start us?
Why you won? Why isn't that on your resume?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, sometimes I'll bring it up in conversation, but I'm like, why don't I put I don't know. It's just like out of place.
I guess it's really just acting industry resumes that kind of pressure you at the bottom with your special skills section to have something fun and interesting. I guess we kind of use. I mean,
sometimes I put it down there every once in a while, but it was always like, is this out of play? Like, are people gonna be like, what the hell is that? Like, why is that on there?
I've seen that often. I feel like tech does that too, where it's like, avid eater of pupusas or something. It's like very random thing.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I think that's actually just such a good segue into talking about executive presence, because this idea of even of what should you or should you not put on your resume really touches upon that. But we wanted to start with where we always like to start, which is about feelings. So the question is, how do you feel when you hear the term executive presence? Like, what does that, it's not so much what it looks like, but like, what's your reaction to it? And I think let's start with Phnom.
So I've had this weird relationship with the word executive because I technically am one. I mean, I'm the CEO of my company, but I don't really do anything that's the, poster child of executive presence is. Like, I dress however I want. I don't own high heels. I don't own a suit. I, show up with all the colors of the rainbow in every single place. I come in with ideas that are here to shock people because that's how I can extract interesting thoughts from them. It's, to me, it's something that needs to evolve, right? We still need executive presence, but I've seen people act differently when people have fancy resume titles or appear to have more money or, all of those very shallow ways of seeing success or expressing success. And I want the world to see that there are people of every gender, every color, every background, everything that have the power of having a voice in a room.
Mm.
Maybe that's how I describe executive presence, is that voice in the room.
Christina, I see you nodding. How does the word, well, the phrase executive presence make you feel?
Similarly to Phenom, I feel like it's almost like ill-fitting clothes that we've outgrown, because it's just a one size fits all. It might be a little too tight. It's probably crusty and dusty. It's been around for a long time. And if you don't fit into it, then you're not taken seriously, or there are negative assumptions that are made about you. And there's so many false narratives around who a leader should be. And that's something that motivates a lot of my work, because I think we have inherently terrible ideas about leadership. And it's what led to all the inequalities and problems that we have right now. So when I hear the word executive presence, I think of exclusion, I think of rigidity, I think of convention, I think of status quo. And I think it has to be changed, because it's not really serving anyone. Even the people who have to perform executive presence are usually not being themselves, they're not being authentic, they're presenting what they think will be taken seriously or will be considered professional or a leader, when in fact it's just an act and we've made it up, and it's rules that don't necessarily make you smarter or more efficient or more creative or more productive.
Christina, I love that you use the expression act to perform, I think you said. Performing executive presence instead of being, instead of putting out there, instead of showing a certain level of authenticity. I found that interesting.
And kind of jumping off of that, if we think of the idea of executive presence as a performance, it'll be a lot easier for some folks to perform that, because it is created for them, versus those folks from marginalized backgrounds that have often been on the outskirts. It is like way harder to try to perform that, and even then it's just used usually as a tool to exclude, as Christina, as you said. So to me, when I think of executive presence, it's a red flag. Or if it's ever brought up, I'm like let's unpack that. What does it actually mean? Like what do you want to see? And so it's a term that I don't have a great positive connotation to.
Kelly, what about you?
I mean, I would say being the sort of the person probably, the closest to what when people say executive, being a white female, it still feels like you're getting smashed into, this ridge, like I would say, almost like a kid with plasticine, trying to force something into a mold, and it doesn't fit. Because, yes, when you pick up, everyone said, and when you think of who are leaders, if you look at like the Fortune 1000, the number of men over 6 feet tall who are CEOs, and it bears no resemblance to the number of men over 6 feet tall in the general population. But we have this pale, male, pale, and tall assumption, right? Add that on there of what it is, and the rest of us just can't fit into that. It just doesn't work. I think what is more healthy and helpful is to think about and be aware of the impact your presence has, so you can make a choice.
You guys are already going so much into all of the issues that we want to cover today, which is exactly why we chose you for this. Oh my God. All right. So I want to ask, and I'll throw this out to the room, and raise your hand if something comes to mind. Do you remember a specific moment in your career, maybe early in your career or mid-career or wherever, where you recognized that there was something about you that someone else thought was not executive presence? Like an attribute about you, or a piece of your appearance, or anything? Like, do you have any sort of stories about that moment when you realized maybe you didn't fit into the executive presence box?
I have a couple of stories about that, which is pretty funny. So I've been across 4 different industries before, running my own company. I was in the law world, hated it. I went into the nonprofit world, thought I would change the world, didn't love that either. And when I got to the nonprofit space, I was doing an interview, and I'd come from the law firm during my lunch break, trying to do my thing and like find new opportunities. And I had that at that point, I think I had like 4 interviews that day, and I'd gotten to my final one. And at the time, this was the COO of the company. So she's asking me all these questions, and I feel like I'm doing a great job. We have rapport, cracking some jokes, telling her about my skills. And then she says to me, she's like, I think you should be more bubbly when you come in a room. And she started critiquing my personality and telling me that I don't smile enough and all of these things that felt super presumptuous about how I present myself. Because also, mind you, I'm coming from a very serious law firm in a pencil skirt. So obviously I'm not going to come and be like, hey guys, like that's not who I am, right? But I think that's what she was expecting, because in her mind, everybody had to perform and present as her. And I think there's an assumption of leadership looks like myself. People need to be like me, be a carbon copy, affinity bias, which is huge among people who get into leadership roles.
Yeah.
If they don't present in the same ways that I do, they clearly aren't as skilled or as serious as I am. And I remember telling her in the interview, I said, well, my friends say I'm the life of the party. And I think you making that assumption in a 10-minute interview is pretty off the mark. I just told her that straight up. And I almost didn't take the job. I walked out of there like, I may not take this shit. Okay. I don't know if we're supposed to curse, but I was like, I don't know if this is for me, because this is a huge jump. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have, is all of the assumptions and stories that we attach to people as soon as we see them, without fully getting to know them or assessing their skills or seeing what they can do. And I remember at that moment, I was like, I'm not changing who I am, because I inherently know that I'm good at what I do. And just because I don't present in the way that she's asking doesn't mean that I can't do the job. But it was the first time I was confronted with someone telling me, change who you are, because I don't like the way you present yourself.
Wow. Yeah, I have similar story, but in the eyes of recruiting. So I used to do a lot of recruiting, not as a recruiter, but the coordinator that helped recruiters. So a lot of just like taken under the wing and learning from the recruiting team. And I would just read the feedback that would often be so coded in that, executive presence or polish. Oh, this person's great. They have the skills, but they're not polished enough. Like, what does that mean? Like, what is this polish? And even though it wasn't directly to me, I started to just kind of connect the dots. And, I recovering perfectionist like Casey. And so I'm like, okay, what can I do so that I'm always polished, right? And I had to unlearn a lot of that when I'm presenting, I had a manager who was like, make sure to write your entire script, because I want you to say it exactly how you said it to me. And because that's what the CEO wants to hear. And so a lot of unlearning that came from that, right? Of like, oh, that is not who I am. I want my personality to shine through. I don't want to strip that away. And I now know that is just kind of biased language. And luckily I'm in an industry that confronts that.
I can go next. By the way, Patty, I don't know if you saw, but all of our faces were contorting the entire time you were talking, because we were relating so hard. Yeah. So I'm one of those, I guess, rare breed of people who are executive but can also do the work. And that makes people very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. So, and I can go very deep into details, and it always surprises people. I get a lot of comments say, "Oh, I'm surprised you know this." Like, I didn't get here by just like stealing other people's ideas and putting them on my resume. That's that's it. And one of the consequences of that is because before I became an executive, I, like most people, I applied to jobs. And it surprises a lot of people that I have had essentially one successful interview my entire career. All the other ones were failures or some subset of it, or like weird compromise, like you can come in as a contractor, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, all of these people changed their mind eventually, but that has a lot to do with what I mentioned, and also that the fact that I speak with a lot of authority, but I do not look like what I do. Right?
Yeah. Wow. I do not look like what I do. That's such an interesting, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Okay, here's a follow-up question. Who does look like what you do?
Nobody does what I do. I don't know anybody else who can design medical products, fashion products, and spacecrafts.
I don't either.
Snaps to that.
Yes. Kelly, do you have a moment that you remember?
I'm just, here's the things that are running through my mind, in reaction to what I've heard. I remember being ferociously frustrated in my 20s of where my career was not going. And now sitting here at 55, I look and think, why, do we not accept that ideas and leadership and executive material can happen at different points in their careers for different people? And I think we're phenomenally hard on women. It's like, you're not allowed to have executive and leadership until, you hit my zip code, right? You're not allowed to do it at this younger age. But if you're a dude, oh, look, he's a genius, he's this whatever, he can be 18 and do these things. But women, we're discounted. And so there's part of me hearing all this that is sort of feeling that kind of, sort of, I was born in 65. You could do all the history of what happened with women's rights and feminism. And, we're not supposed to be having this conversation in this way of people doubting who you are and what you do. We were supposed to be through that. So there's that kind of element. When my own personal story is sort of a reverse, I remember, and this would have been, it would probably have been 2006, 2007, when I still had a job. And my boss said to me, he said, do you realize? And I'm like, do I realize what? He goes, do you realize the impact you have when you walk in a room? And I'm looking at him going, I walk through the door. I take a chair. Like, is that an impact? And he's like, you have no clue. You come in and your presence, like, you suck the air, like, not in a bad way. It's like, you suck the air so the attention is towards you. And I'm like, well, there's a new one, because maybe it's sort of like this feeling of being so overlooked and frustrated with a career for so long that finally you get to a point where you're having an impact and you don't realize it. So there's my 2 cents, Casey.
I am muted. What I want to ask, and I'm thinking about this from both the work that we do, where people come in, help me with executive presence, and there's obviously some sort of clear idea of what that is or what that isn't. And I'm speaking now in what it looks like, but no one can define it. And I'm thinking about, this goes back to my dad in the 80s, and he was trying to climb the corporate ladder and he needed to learn how to play golf. And my stepmom sent him to go tanning. He got the right watch. He had a hot wife. Like, these were specific things that she was getting him to check off the list. And of course, my dad grew up in jeans and a t-shirt and built boats and fished. And he's like, but there was a specific codification for that time. I guess what I feel like people respond as though there is still a specific codification, yet when we push people to define what that is in sessions, they often don't have an answer. So I'd kind of like to find out from you guys what you think that answer is, because we've talked about the feeling of not fitting and who does, but do you think there's as strict of a definition now, or is it components, or is it really just, I guess this gets into a later question about weaponization, is it just to keep people out?
Well, there was an interesting study done by Tina Kiefer, which I talk about a lot. She was an organizational psychologist, and she had asked a group of business executives that she was working with to draw a picture of what an ideal leader looks like. And at the end of the activity, a majority of them drew a man, and phenotypically drew somebody who had light skin and straight hair. And the study was replicated, I think, a dozen times with different groups, and the results were always the same, regardless of demographics. people, when they're asked, what does an ideal leader look like, draw a man, and usually it's a light-skinned man with straight hair. So I do think we still have a very codified narrative of leadership means white man. Leadership means white, heterosexual, straight man who doesn't necessarily have certain conventional features that are different than what we see in the media and on TV and what was been ingested for a very long time. And I think it makes sense in the terms of how our systems and our structures, because people were barred from leadership literally by law for generations, and up until very recently, people couldn't hold positions of power, they couldn't vote, they couldn't be elected, so the people who could became the default. And I think that's still very much etched in people's minds. We're starting to rebel against it. As you can see, a lot of people are starting their own companies. We're all blazing our own paths. We're wearing our hair how we want. We're wearing lipsticks. We're wearing different clothes. But typically that's being done in its own self-expression outside of a conventional setting. I think people who are still inside of corporate America really do struggle with that. And even if people don't explicitly say it because they know it's not acceptable to say, they still assume it. Like a great example of this is when I was still so I don't work at a job anymore, I work for myself. But when I had a job, I was at a big media company. We had 14 online magazines, from satire to women's news to gaming and sports, you name it. And I was in charge of hiring for our strategy team. And when we were looking at resumes, my boss kept saying, well, why is this person on their resume? Why did they stay in this position for so long? Are they not ambitious? And they were making all these assumptions instead of thinking about what were the barriers in the way to their potential promotions? What were the ways that this person tried to make the best of what they could in a system that typically can be very biased, right? And so I think there's a lot of assumptions that are made about who should be in the leadership seat, even in the most liberal, woke, progressive, you name it kind of companies. This company literally has a Black news website that talks about all of the topics and issues and social norms of the day, and still internally was suffering from pretty serious bias. So I think, yes, executive presence and our assumptions are they're very much rigid, and that's why we need to challenge those narratives so that we don't continue to pass them on and replicate them in the systems that we're building now, because innovation is not repeating the status quo.
I was thinking, Christina, as soon as you said in terms of men in suits, so a few weeks ago, it was like, 4 p.m. on a Thursday, and here we've been, social isolation. And I went for a walk and a crossover in Midtown on Park Avenue, and it's like men in suits, like suits. And I'm thinking, I missed this memo. People are back in their offices, but I found it shocking in some ways that, and maybe we could take a positive view. Maybe they were back in the offices in suits because they were tired of being at home in their shorts and their t-shirts or whatever else. But the formality, it shocked me, and it shocked me. It almost felt even more formal than it was the dress code before the pandemic. But this just men in suits who were clearly back in offices, and it was like, wow, like is this a variety in their wardrobe, or do they feel this like, all right, now we're back and we have to show we're serious about working, and we're serious about, like, we're going to be more productive because we're back in the office, and they had to drink that cup of BS as well.
Question for
Patty?
you. Were the colors of the suits different? Were they like wild colors, or was it like blue, navy, black, gray? Like, were they all kind of in the same color family?
It was the same color family, but there was that sort of brighter blue that men have sort of been wearing, and I can just liken it to having to see the G7. It was like Canada's prime minister and somebody else. I'm like, that's not your usual navy. That's a little bit of a saucier blue, but it was still a blue suit.
Oh, they're getting wild with saucier blues. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We're progressing here.
There was no seersucker or whatever, but it was your usual color palette. But I was like, wow, I hadn't expected this. I was sort of thinking, all right, as people go back to the offices, maybe they're going to take their pajama bottoms off, but I didn't expect back to the suits.
Patty, what about you?
I feel like, kind of jumping off of both what Christina and Kelly are saying, where the rigidity exists of that, white heterosexual man. But even if they're not wearing suits, I think there's now the new tech CEO, which is like t-shirts, relaxed jeans, like can speak your language, chill, and they're allowed so many things that others aren't, right? Like you can have like a lack of executive presence, and that in itself is their executive presence. But if somebody else tries to do that and come in with jeans and a t-shirt and, you know, be chill, oh, wait, like you may not be ready for this job, or you may not be the right fit. And so it seems like we create these parameters based on who the person is, and like this new definition of executive presence evolves, but truly always to benefit those that have held the power already.
Oh. The lack of executive presence becomes their version of executive presence. That exactly. I feel like is so accurate from what we've seen working in the tech industry when we've gone in, that there is a brand that is rebel, but in a very generalized way and only for a very specific kind of white man. Yep. He's the one who gets away with that. That's so interesting. Phenom, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in San Francisco, right next to Silicon Valley. So back in the day when we networked in person, you know, everybody was wearing the, you know, jeans and the Patagonia vest and the big backpack and, you know, asking, like, just throwing a bunch of buzzwords around. So there was a lot of fitting in, right? In order to climb the ladder and get into an executive level, you had to fit in. But in order to enjoy success, you had to stand out. Oof. After you fit in. And what I've been trying to do is not even try to compare myself to men. I have no interest in that. What I'm trying to do is fit out. So you know what you're up against, you know, whoever they are, whatever they do. And the whole goal is to enter a room and then be yourself as loud as possible. And that has been something that I've done. And what's wonderful is that it invites question. I mean, I've been asked, why do you look like this? I've been asked why, you know, you don't, I've been told many times you don't look like what you do. I've been asked many times, oh, is the work you do even real?
And you're like, no, it's surreal, actually.
Thank you. I'll use that next time. I mean, I'll give you an example about the last statement I just made. So I was a college professor for 4 years, teaching industrial design. And after about 4 years, you have to go through an evaluation through the school to make sure that you're not, you know, just wasting money or whatever. And so I had to send in my portfolio, which is, you know, a smorgasbord of the work that I've done. And I received an email back saying, we will not tolerate, you know, fake work or work that is not legitimate. Mind you, I run a design firm. And yeah, it's pretty crazy what kind of assumptions people make based on what they see from you, whether it's your own person, whether it's your work, whether it's the words that you use in an email. But yeah.
How old were you when you were teaching, when you were a professor?
Between 35 and 39, maybe. Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, was it the breadth of the work? Was it your age, the breadth of the work, that they were like, this young woman could not have done this? I mean, as I'm thinking about this, when they say that we wouldn't accept fake work, is that they are like, there's no way that she could have had this vast amount of creativity and productivity unless she was, you know, borrowing other people's ideas.
So the thing is, I don't know and I don't care.
You're gonna say that twice.
But that's the way. I mean, you know what? That's the way it strikes me. Like when I'm thinking, like, what were they thinking? What are the assumptions they're making about you? And then, in a strange way, I'm grateful that they were so hideous, because you said you were a professor for 4 years, and it's like, thank you for leaving the confines of something that clearly wasn't going to serve you in the long run.
No. Yeah, I mean, we can talk for hours about education. There's so many things. I think the root of the problem we're talking about today, executive presence and where it comes from historically, comes a lot from education and how people relate to it. Because education is one of those big parts of your resume, for example. And I actually want to understand why, because for the most part, I don't get it.
And yet the most emotionally unbalanced people I know all went into serious academia, and that's who trained us all.
It's also so inaccessible.
Especially in the acting industry. Oh my goodness. Christina, I want to piggyback on a few things that you've said earlier and ask a really specific question. So you went through all of these different industries. You left to start your own thing. You've been seeing very believable, but really exciting to see success in the last year. And now you're going back into the corporate lion's den as the expert and as the person they've invited to come and teach them. And I want to know what that's been like for you. And if you feel like the reception that you're getting is different now.
That's such a great question, because when I was exiting out of corporate America, I was like, never again. You take your little life parachute, you jump out, you're like, I'm out of here. But really, what inspired me to go back and sort of dissect organizations and their impact on people and our system is really because they have so much power. They have financial power, they have power over people's mental health and well-being because they hold the purse string. There's so many reasons why corporations are sick and really imbalanced and have a lot of really, really bad values that essentially create a lot of issues inside of their companies and outside of them. So I saw them as the root of if it was a cancer, I was like, that's the cancer. So how do we essentially treat this at the root and get organizations to sort of shift their systems dynamically? I think sometimes when it comes to, especially like development work or, improvement, we're so hyper-focused on the individual and making employees sort of saving a burning ship. Or like, if you were on the Titanic, you had a spoon, you were trying to like spoon out the water on the Titanic. There's only so much you can do with that little spoon, but like if the Titanic had not, been built a specific way to begin with, maybe it wouldn't have had the issues that it had, right? So I think for me, it's really, how can I come back inside as a third party? Because typically I'm not seen as a threat. I'm seen as someone who could potentially bring a new perspective, a new refreshing sort of way of doing things that can get people excited to close the gap between their held values and what they actually do. I think a lot of our issue is people have these internal values that they, aspire to and are excited about, but then their actual actions when it comes to their decision making, their communication, the cultures that they build, the creative that they start to construct, the values aren't expressed through them. And so I talk a lot about closing that gap. How do we get the cognitive distortions that's in the way of our fullest potential out of the way, so that people can actually create and collaborate at the highest level? And we can't do that when fear and scarcity and anxiety is the driving value. I think most organizations, they're driven by fear and scarcity. That's what a lot of this is even about, is, I'm afraid of change, I'm afraid of difference, and I want to control it as much as possible. So please present yourself in a way that's palatable and safe to me. Please show up in very specific ways, and getting people to let go of those sort of safety nets and understanding that they'll actually be able to create at higher levels is what excites me, because I see the changes. I see the ways that people can start to build new small habits that can move them away from some of those maladaptive behaviors. But it came from a lot of pain, working for 10 years in corporate America, especially as a Black woman. Y'all have stories for days. You all don't even know the amount of microaggressions and racism and nonsense I've dealt with. But I think being in the lion's den allowed me to see up close and personal what were the malfunctions and the issues, what was working and what wasn't working. So I have a first person perspective and experience outside of the psychology and the research and everything that I build into my trainings, into my approaches. My firsthand experience was also a big part of that. So I think, you usually work on what you know and what you've experienced. And that's what motivated me, because I had such really very, very painful experiences in those organizations, and also some great ones that was like, okay, what can we do and how can we change this and make this better?
Patty, I want to jump to you, because, and what I just realized is that everyone in this room is a teacher in some way, which is very exciting. All of you have brilliant ideas that you share with other people. So Patty, one of the things that we talked about a lot when we were all working together was your physical youthfulness.
Yes.
And having to go into rooms as the teacher and hold a position of authority and in the midst of very uncomfortable conversations. So I'd love to give you a chance to elaborate on that a little bit for this audience, and what it's like to look young, but need to have a position of power, and especially as someone who's facilitating hard topics.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great question, Casey. I can start of what it was like working internally, right? I felt like my appearance and the way that I looked young and the way that I carried myself definitely was a hindrance to me being able to be taken seriously, even though I was doing all the work. And, you know, as a woman of color, it's like, keep doing the work, but we will not promote you. We will not do this. We will not do that. So coming out of corporate and coming into a consulting role, now I get to be inside a company, but they're paying us to come in and tell them the hard truths, to have hard conversations. And so having that allowance really helps me lean into who I am, right? Because you're getting me, and I don't want to sugarcoat. I don't want to change what I'm trying to say. And I also don't need to deal with the politics of an internal company. And so kind of like having that setting really helps me lean into it and just be myself and have those hard conversations while bringing some light humor and some just like good facilitation tactics. And I do think potentially some of our clients are still like, oh, you know, this, how old are you? 18-year-old coming to tell us I'm not 18 years old. But I think just knowing that I have the backing of collective, knowing that I have the knowledge, knowing that I have something valuable to say has helped me strip away from that fear of like not being taken seriously, not, you know, being seen as somebody that is an expert. And I've been able to really lean into it. So a lot of learning, as I mentioned earlier. It's kind of been my theme of the past couple of years.
Well, and Kelly, you are our elder stateswoman of this particular cohort, but you've worked with people of, you know, you're working with a lot of college students right now. You're talking to them about creating their presence out in the world and building their networks and all of the brilliance that you have. I want to know, from the position of someone who, you know, as you already said, like entered your career in a not a totally different era, but kind of. How have you watched the advice, particularly that young people are getting, change over the years? Do you think that it is different now, like at least on the surface, or?
No, because their parents are like my generation.
Mm.
Like, or the advice they're getting is from, you know, someone older, and so so many of them are getting advice of like sort of sticking into a mold, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't rock the boat. I think particularly right now, given, you know, yes, sort of in some sectors a booming job market, but for many students, I mean, they had 2020 kind of wiped away the internships and their graduation and all the rest of that. So I think a lot of them are getting guidance in terms of how they proceed and how they handle themselves and who they should be looking to for the guidance and, you know, like the networking and how they handle an interview. They're getting it from people who, you know, like I said, are my zip code in age. And I'm like, no, this is not helpful, right? This is not, you know, you should be talking to your peers. You should be talking to the people who are actively, you know, in the trenches with you. Talk to the people who are a year or two ahead of you. You know, how did they navigate that? What are they doing? And by the way, when you have to, you know, communicate with old farts like me, she says jokingly, you've got to look at that individual, like how and where do you communicate with another individual? What's their communication preference? Because then they will hear and see you.
Interesting. Well, so we've sort of concentrated on, obviously, because all of us are in America, an American style of leadership presence, executive presence, whatever you want to talk about it. Phnom, I wanted to specifically ask you, you've spent a lot of time internationally, you were educated internationally, you've worked all over the world. Do you think that there is a different idea of this in other places? Do you think that America sets the tone for executive presence kind of throughout the world? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I grew up in France, lived there until my early 20s. And it's actually worse there
Ooh.
because there's old money connected to
Mm.
executive presence. And old money gets you really far there, or a last name, or, you know, your family on your uncle's side, whatever, owns a chateau and champagne, whatever. Like it's always like something like that. And when you're like me, who grew up in the projects outside of Paris, having dreams and ambitions was just not part of what people expect, right? If I ever met people I grew up with and told them where I am today, they wouldn't believe me. It's funny. There's like this theme of a lot of people who don't believe me, but um, and I think you have to be aware of how the world works, of how people perceive executive presence or power or anything that gets you somewhere. And I think what's important is to know how to toy with it.
Ooh.
You know,
Say
what
more
can you
about that.
push? What can you pull? What can you surprise with? What can you, shut up and listen for a minute? Um, and once you're very comfortable with that play, that's when you come in, and that's when you almost impose your way of thinking or your idea or whatever you're trying to put out there. Because the problem with the status quo executive presence is, let's be real, is really freaking boring. Um, I'm tired of listening to the same stuff, hearing the same buzzwords, or listening to people tell me that there's a hierarchy of subjects. The hierarchy of subjects is very prominent in France. Like, if you speak philosophy, like, this is it, right? Um, but like tech and everything else is a little bit lower, and this probably has changed now. But there's this, how to call it, like nose up in the air type of behavior around anything executive. And but the difference between France and the US is that culture, or the ability to tell very specific stories that have a lot of richness in them, is more valued in France than it is here. That is a huge difference that I had to adapt myself to, because I moved to the US. I was like, I barely spoke English, start to talk about spacecraft and all that, and I got into these very specific stories of people's interactions and cuisines from like different parts of the world and how it affects health and blah blah blah. And people are like, what are you talking about? I'm a physicist. I only talk about physics. And so I had to like reimagine that connection that I had with people. And now that I've been living in the US for 16 years now, it's a game. It's really entertaining.
I have a quick thing I wanted to add onto that just sparked something for me, because you said, understanding how it works and playing with this sort of assumption about what power looks like. And it makes me think of narrative intelligence, which is a topic I talk about a lot. And really, that concept is just the idea of understanding your own internal narratives and how it affects your beliefs and behaviors. And then being, privy and savvy with how you construct narrative to influence and persuade other people. Because at the end of the day, power is story. And so even if people are changing their stories and narratives from an elaborate, beautiful one you might hear in France to something that's more numbers and data here, I think what's really fascinating is if we could teach people how powerful their story really is in terms of their presence and in terms of influence and persuasion, there's so much can potentially be shifted. I think most people feel like, who's going to listen to me? And then they don't try at all. So they're being silent. And silence doesn't change anything either, right? So it's sort of like being silent in the face of what you don't like isn't going to necessarily make this issue of power and leadership and equity better. but being able to understand how the game works and then flipping it because you understand the psychology of persuasion, the psychology of how narrative affects the brain, affects decision making. It's an incredibly powerful tool that can be used for good or for bad. And so that's why I'm so inspired by it, because I think it plays a far deeper role in our lives and the systems that we're part of than we talk about. And I think this is a great example of it, being able to, one, even see the systems around and be like, okay, what is the deal? What is the monopoly game? And now what can we move and what can we shift so that we change something or make something new? Because we have the opportunity. I always tell people we made all this stuff up. Like, just a few, 100 years ago, none of this stuff existed. The rules and the conventions and the cultural norms, all this stuff is constantly evolving. It's not like it's written as, a truth that can never change. And that's what's fascinating to me, where people are like, well, this is how it is. I'm like, it wasn't like that. Oh, if we want to change this, look at the pandemic, all the things that happened that had to change in the heartbeat, being remote, being flexible, being innovative, because they were forced to from a pain point. It shouldn't take literal loss and inflection points of destruction to get people to change. So I think we can get more people to understand that if they continue to improve their narrative intelligence.
Thank you for saying that in terms of, this is the way that things are, because, having been, law and Wall Street and, the old structures, when I got into the tech space and people were like, well, how do you handle, like the sexism and the stuff in the tech space? And I'm like, it's really boring. At least if I was being sexually harassed by the bankers, it was like with a better bottle of wine than, the warm beer, right? Your point of structures, when I think like Silicon Valley and tech was supposed to be different, yet they've just kind of done the same structures, in terms of, what, who are executive, who get promoted, this is the way things are. And I'm like, really, it doesn't need to be this way, not at all. And to pick up, something that was said before, and your question earlier, Casey, when you asked me, what do you sort of tell younger people? But, particularly for those who are looking to go into careers like mine was in the past, I always say to them, look at the way people interact and how money is made. Like who gets the business? Where's the deal flow? And figure out how, does that work for you? Or do you have a way to work around it to create your own? Because, if you think about law firms, Christina's nodding, right? How do they get clients and how do they share attribution? How do they make money? And you either have to operate within that structure or create your own power structure so that you are untouchable. But, the thing sometimes people focus on when they're looking at companies, I'm like, it's on the website. You can check the box. You can see that they have it. You don't need to ask about those things. Figure out how they make money and and how the relationships with making that money are, and whether or not that's going to work for you, or you can find a way to make it work for you.
I love sorry, go ahead.
In addition to what Kelly's just saying, figure out how they make money, extremely important. But the thing is that a lot of people who make a lot of money are extremely unfulfilled, right? They're just making money. So one position you could take is figure out and understand how they make money, but also figure out for yourself what will make you happy.
Yeah.
Right? Is it value alignment? Is it in alignment with your own purpose in life? Or anything that really takes you to the core? And that's something that's very important too. You can hear the difference in the way millennials, Gen Z, and younger people talk about careers. It's not about making the bigger buck anymore. Yeah. It's about, am I going to fit into this culture? Is it going to nourish me? And am I going to learn a lot from it? And is it going to be a great trampoline for my next step in life? Right?
But you're absolutely right. And I think that conversation on, how they make the money, in the sense of that, thinking particularly, and Christina will nod and agree with, particularly in professional services firms, that will determine the culture.
Oh yeah.
And that's the driver of that. And so when you're looking at it, like, are people making money in a way that they're being collaborative? Are they making money in terms of who are the clients they're serving that represent, you know, your values, like all of those kinds of things. And, you know, I think particularly when, you know, I think of my career as a lawyer, there's so many lawyers who do get meaning out of that practice of law, but somehow the relationships within the firm and the culture and that part of it is what can drive things to, you know, sideways and exit.
I want to point out something that you said, sorry, just briefly, Kelly, you were talking about working within systems or working outside of systems. And I think this is something that we end up talking about a lot. I think we don't need more people working within systems to uphold old systems, but we need people who are working within systems who are changing them from the inside. And we need people who are working outside of systems who are disrupting and affecting and changing systems. Because I think if we don't have both, I think it's easy for entrenched power structures to ignore the people who are throwing rocks at the building from the outside. So we need those insider disruptors as well. And I love that you pointed out that, like, you can do both. There are ways to do both.
Right, and sometimes you need to chip away at it, you know. And as soon as you say that, I think of a story of one of the partners at the firm I worked, Mrs. Donahue, was one of the, like, she was in one of those law classes, you know, that, you know, graduated with, you know, like 3 women in the law class in 60 whatever, and the only job she could get was, you know, or was being offered, even though she was like top of her class, was like secretary in a law firm, and she became like one of the first female partners of like the New York white shoe law firm. And, you know, she was very strategic when she saw that, you know, there was so many guys in the area of law that she was practicing, and her likelihood of being made partner was going to be, you know, a little slim. She switched practice areas. So she, you know, like, she was always very, like, she picked her fights and whatever. And the classic story with Mrs. Donahue, she was unbelievably, like, stunning, and her sense of style, like, nobody's business. And she got an email from the managing partner, and there was like a crisis in the law firm. A female summer associate in the 80s had come to work in a pantsuit.
Gasp.
I was not expecting you to say that. Should have known better.
How dare she?
The managing partner called Maureen, and she's like, "Don't worry, Jim, I've got it. Right? Don't worry." And the next day she came to work in a pantsuit.
Yes!
I love that.
Ended like what women wore in the office. I mean, the only thing you ever worried in the office was like Mrs. Donahue commenting on your outfit, because she was so freaking stylish, and that, you know, more on that another day. But she's like, she's like, "Don't worry, Jim, I've got it. I'll handle it." And she came to work in a pantsuit the next day. End of discussion. So sometimes, you know what, it's maybe like a little thing, but it was actually a massive thing in terms of what women as, you know, leaders could wear, you know, in that industry at that time.
I think it's important, you know, Casey, what you said of disrupting inside of a system. If that is you, if you're disrupting within a system, how are you bringing others in, right? And it sounds like pantsuit is right there. And because I think there's been the narrative of lean in, which is important, but how are you also bringing in and ensuring that that system is open and inviting to folks that have been left out?
I want to talk about, there was a thing on Twitter the other day, because you were just talking about strategy. She was very strategic about her presence. And one of the narratives I think that caused us to start Vital Voice Training is this idea that women somehow are not strategic about their presence, so they need to be told all the do's and do nots about their presence. So I just saw this on Twitter the other day. It was a slide that a woman posted. She had been in a workshop about executive presence, it sounds like, and she got this list. So the title of the slide was, "How do we unwittingly sabotage ourselves?" And it's 2 columns.
Can you hold up for the end of the second question? Because I want to hear this, but can we go after the next question?
Yes.
Okay, it's important. It ties in. I just wanted to ask a question as we go forward that leads to this in a way. And it comes from a lot of thoughts I have around stories, again, from my dad. He talks about the guy who had a toilet in his office who could just flush it in the middle of important phone calls to insert his dominance. Yeah, Kelly, I thought you'd appreciate that one. And
They're crazy.
Stories from
my mom, column, yes.
Right, exactly. And my mom went to law school, put herself through law school. I actually just got a picture of her. It was 1990 that she graduated. So she was both single momming, working full time as a nurse, and going to law school. And when she started to interview for jobs, I remember her coming and telling my dad, who was her ex-husband at the time, oh, they talked to me about all I knew. And then the other guy, they just talked to him about his yacht. And my dad gave her this look and she's like, what? And it's because he knew that meant she wasn't getting the job. He was going to get the job because it had gone into this social territory. And all of this to say, one of the things we also really pay attention to is this function of how people who are in positions of privilege are allowed to break the rules. And at a certain point, that being able to break the rules is what gets you to that next leg of authority and power. But until you get to that position where you're allowed to break the rules, you're deeply punished for it. So in that context of different rules to kind of keep different people, I don't think there's another way to call it, but in their place. And Casey, this is where it ties into what you were saying in really specific terms, but I'd like to also hear from everybody else, other ways that executive presence gets weaponized. And Christina, you mentioned microaggressions at your job, and I think everyone has touched upon times where they were dismissed with this executive presence excuse when, to me, it's not really seeming like that's the problem. So I guess I'm asking about the weaponization of executive presence and however you want to jump in.
I have so many thoughts on this.
Great.
And I think it's because I was always the person who suffered from being the rebel, being the change maker, who's like, this is wrong, y'all. And like people being like, don't talk about that. We don't want to, So a quick example of that was, the same company I was working at, the media company. I had been tasked to do a pretty big pitch for a pretty large brand at the last minute. They're like, hey, we have this $1 million pitch. Could you fly out to Chicago? It was like 2 days notice. And I was like, okay, cool. I got it. Let's go out there. Let's pitch this big creative idea for them. And on my way out there, we land. I go to the client meeting, doing my thing. It goes very well. They're enjoying the ideas. And when I get back to my desk, I'm trying to email my colleagues and I get all of these kickbacks that they no longer work there. So I'm learning that everyone's being fired while I'm trying to finish projects that were right in the middle of being finished, essentially. So I'm like, what is happening? So essentially, they let go of 30 people with no warning in the middle of projects, in the middle of things, and didn't tell us. So we're learning through email. So this is all happening. And I still have something to do at the end of the day before I go back to the airport. So I get it to the seller who needed to give it to the client well before I needed to leave. I go to the airport. I'm sitting on the tarmac, getting relaxed, ready to take off back to New York. And I get an email from the seller who's like, hey, there's a thing I need to change in the presentation. And this is maybe like 5 minutes before it's due. They've had this thing maybe 3 hours, right? So I was like, hey, I'm in an airplane. I can't change that. I gave this to you 3 hours ago. Maybe you could tweak that on your own. So I land in New York. My flight was super delayed. So I was home very, very late. And I get a very angry email from my boss the next morning who was like, we need to talk about what happened yesterday. And I'm like, the hell? So I got on the phone with her and she's like, well, I heard that the proposal is late because you were able to change X, Y, and Z. And I said, did you realize that this person had the presentation for 3 hours? We also had 30 people fired in the middle of the day and I had to rush back to the airport. So there was a lot of things going on and I still got it done. And it was still a tiny thing that could have been changed on their end. But she essentially blamed me and said, do you understand your role and what you're supposed to be doing? And I knew I was being held to a very different standard. So I had no wiggle room for error. I had no wiggle room for any kind of flexibility. I was given no empathy. And that happened often. But we had Eric on the team, who was a white guy who wouldn't show up to meetings. His presentations were full of spelling errors. I mean, he was a hot mess, but they would just be like, oh, Eric is Eric. The reason I bring this up is I told her in that moment, I said, Lindsay, I'm gonna call her name out. I said, Lindsay, I really, at this point, feel like I am held to an exacting, unrealistic standard. I deliver excellent work on time, and I brought in the most money at this company that any person has on this team at this point. And if that's not understood and accepted, I feel like maybe this is not the right position that I should be in. And she was taken aback because I was calling out what was happening in the moment. And I think it's incredibly important if you are going to be in a position where you want to change things and call it out, to understand your worth, to verbalize your worth. And I was keeping money, I was keeping a ledger of money, how much money I brought in, how many clients I was helping, how many people I was developing. I had the track record and I had the receipts. So I could back up what I said with actual numbers and data and facts. And when I was challenged or when I was calling out inequality, I could say, hey, I have value here and I can see the difference and I can give you examples of how I'm treated differently than other people. And I think that's so important to understand because many times we task the marginalized to do all these things without thinking about the repercussions or the many nuances that they're dealing with. And I talk about this all the time where it's like, absolutely call things out, but you have to do it in a nuanced way and understand the systems and strategies around you to do it safely so that you're not fired. I could have been fired from my job from one tiny thing that wasn't even my fault. And the seller didn't get in trouble. And she was the one that didn't touch the thing for 3 hours. So I think that's a tiny example of the many sort of like, there's a funny running joke of like black women have to jump 10 times higher and run 10 times faster than their white colleagues. And that's literally true in most organizations because there's this double standard and an assumption that your work is less than, that it's not as buttoned up or tight or informed because of bias. And so I like to call it out and to push back on it because that's really the only way to fix it. But I do it from a position of conviction and do it with the position of information that shows my worth.
Christina, my blood is boiling as usual when I hear these stories.
I got stories for days. I'm like, that's one. That's just the amount of things I'm telling you.
And that's why to me, it's also important to be an ally for everyone, right? For folks that you're seeing be disempowered. When you hear that word, oh, they're not polished. If you're part of an interview, if you're getting ready for a promotion, right? That's an excuse that I've heard many times of why somebody's not getting that promotion, because they just need to be a little bit more polished or they need to have a little bit more executive presence. If you want to empower, it's like, you can ask, what is that? Let's unpack that. Like, actually break it down for me. Like, what is executive presence to you? And that's usually where things start breaking down, because that's where a bias is discovered and where you're like, oh, actually, maybe I changed my mind. They're great. So I think that's something important that we should all keep in mind as we move through these spaces of like, Christina, I love that you're doing it yourself and valuing yourself. And I know that I've been in the position where I feel disempowered and not being able to do that, and having allies around that could do that for me would have been powerful. So that idea of calling in.
I'm laughing. So one of the books behind here, autobiography, Stella Rimington, who was the first woman to lead MI5 in the UK. And one of her, I think it was her first series of job interviews out of university. And she was going in for the final round, and she was very much like, she had no clue what she was doing. She was going for sort of like an archivist role, and the head archivist, he must have seen something in her and wanted to hire her, and was, going to frustrated that she was going to like blow the final interview because she had really lacked a lot of self-confidence at the time. And she, as she says in her book, and I'm thinking this is, to Patty's comment on being an ally, as she came in for the last interview and was about to go in, this old guy looked at her and went, straight in the interview. Father, he was like, sit up straight. And she's like, I did sit up straight and I did get the job. Slouching, and he's like, oh my God, I want to hire this woman, but if she slouches in the final interview, I won't be able to hire her. And so sometimes I think allies have to do those sorts of things. I had an ally at one point, and he would like, for all of us sort of junior female associates, he would like clear the problems, and we'd have like literally the secret dinner once a year. It was like literally you did not tell anyone you were invited to this dinner. It was like what happens, at the summer barbecue, stays at the summer barbecue. It was like Fight Club. Fight Club, you don't talk about it. And this guy would he would not let us leave until we had like poured out all the shit that we were dealing with at work. And then you'd notice over the next 2 or 3 days, all that stuff went away. But he was old white guy, and he was very tall. He could do these things, but thankfully he used his stereotypical executive presence for good.
This sort of brings us back to this slide that I wanted to read. It's a perfect example to me of the lists of conditions that we have that seem to be directly opposed to each other. So the first list is too small, poor posture, speak quickly or softly, don't speak, nod too often, lack eye contact, use upspeak, too many head tilts, smile excessively, delicate or timid handshake, rush. And then on the other side, it's too big, take up too much space, interrupt, talk over, talk too much, be aggressive, put others down, push harder when challenged, negative facial expressions, crushing handshake. So on one side, we have smile excessively, and the other side, we have negative facial expressions. We have delicate or timid handshake, we have crushing handshake. But I think the thing that pissed me off about the slide most was the title, how we unwittingly sabotage ourselves. And it was that word unwittingly that pissed me off. This idea that women have no idea of how we're being received in a room or what our presence is. And I have not met a single woman who is completely unwitting when it comes to how I walk into a room that is important to me. The strategy that's there is immense. It may not be the right strategy for the moment. There certainly are times when we are unwitting, but I want to talk about strategy and I want to talk about double binds, because I feel like we've heard a lot of different strategies from all of you. Phenom, your strategy is stand out, challenge it all the time, keep playing with it. Christina, your strategy has been to create your own thing in order to change the fucking systems themselves. Talk to me about, first of all, have you gotten this kind of double bind advice? And second of all, do you see this concept of unwitting sabotage as being a real thing?
So all I can think is, I'm gonna let everyone else talk. It's it's another friggin' list of things somehow we're broken and we need to be fixed.
My answer is that even real? It sounds like almost a parody.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just really interesting that it's actually a real thing. And I'd counter that and say women are probably a lot more strategic than folks that feel really comfortable in a room, that don't get challenged, that are the ones, the dominant majority, right? They are probably more unwitting, if that's a word that we want to use, versus women are just aware, because you kind of have to be. And usually if you're the only one in the room that looks like that, it is pretty obvious. So I would not agree with that.
Yeah, I would say the funny thing is it kind of boils down to victim blaming, right? Which is always, whenever we have an issue in the system, it's the victim's fault. It's the consumer's fault. It's the marginalized fault that something's happening to them and they need to protect and be hypervigilant. And there's only so much hypervigilance you can do. But one of the things I talk about a lot when it comes to behavior change is what I call the 3 A's, which is awareness, accountability, and action. And the people in power need to have that process happen so that they can become conscious of what they're projecting onto other people. Because the projections do leave you in the double bind. I've been told I'm too aggressive when I'm at companies, just for having an opinion, just for being confident, just for speaking up. And I was told I wasn't smiling enough. I'm like, you want me to smile, but then you do want me to smile. And then when I'm not smiling, I'm aggressive. I'm like, this is not a way to work. So what I ended up doing was, I think what's always been useful for me is conviction. Having confidence in what drives you, what is your curiosity, and what is the problem that you're insatiably curious of solving. Because it's hard for people to refute that when it's I know what she stands for, I know what her values are, I know how she shows up to deliver those values. And I believe what she's saying because it seems authentic to who that person is. So the more that I just showed up in that way, the more benefits I had, regardless if it fit into a very particular box. And also using the 3 A's of challenging my leadership to be conscious and reflective. When I saw double binds, when I saw double standards, I called them out. I would say, hey, on this day, on January 7th, on a Tuesday, this is what happened. And then on this day, this is what happened. Let's talk about the gap and the inconsistency. So having that feedback and being able to have healthy conflict, I think is a big part of it. But it is a dance. I wrote about this with Kamala Harris when she was doing, her debates, and the very intricate dance that Black women are taught specifically about challenging power, but doing it in a way that's palatable, and so you don't get attacked and you don't have crazy people come to your house and throw, bombs through your windows and stuff. I mean, that's a very intricate thing. I was taught that from a very young age growing up in Utah, having to navigate racism on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis with my teachers and my classmates and everything else. How to curse someone out in an elegant way is pretty much what I was taught. And I think that's a skill. It's a skill to be able to understand how to challenge somebody in a way that they'll have to hear it and they may not get defensive to it, and understanding the psychology of conflict and feedback. And it shouldn't be on the burden of the marginalized. So I think there's that, again, it's a balancing act of you can empower yourself with certain skills, having conviction and confidence and be able to challenge when you see things, and also pushing the leadership to challenge their own biases and assumptions and take accountability for their warped decision making, for the warped lens that they have about who should be powerful, who should be heard, who should be seen. Those things have to happen in conjunction. So I don't believe in the idea of one or the other. They have to go hand in hand for any of these things to shift in a positive way. Otherwise, we kind of just end up back at square one.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. I relate so much to everything that's been said, the double bind. So I've been blessed with having 2 terrible parents. What's great about that is that they taught me everything I couldn't do in life. There was a list, there was repetition, there was, everything I was told as a kid is do not do X. You cannot do X, right? And what's great about that is that I never questioned whether or not I should do X. I mean, I was in that mindset. It was like, oh, maybe I should do that so they would be satisfied with me as a child or whatever. I never cared. So I was interested in exploring the other way and the complete opposite. And what's great about that is that the opposite is so many options. It's like every single extreme you can think of is up for grabs. And I think that way of thinking is a little bit of what's missing in society and education and in the way people see life or even see themselves. Is the fact that you have so many options. You can be someone today, you can move to a different place and be someone else tomorrow, and still be your own person, right? You don't have to hold on to that mythology that you have meticulously put together and is there to propel you to that executive position you've been, looking for so long. To me, the ability to turn on a coin and be able to connect with people, be in front of huge challenges and go and solve them calmly, with intelligence, with a great team, with great experience. That's the people I want to work with. I don't want to work with people who, think there's one formula to success, formula to being someone who made it, right? So yeah, I think there's always something to learn from life. Some of it seemed to suck at the time. There's always something you can extract from it that makes you very, very powerful in the world.
I love that and love listening to what everyone has to say, and especially how we blow out the double binds. We tend to almost think binary in the blowing out of the double binds, and I love this idea that that means you've got a ton of options if you're just going to reject this one. So I've been thinking about the movie Wildcats with Goldie Hawn back from like 1983. And, it's one of the white lady goes to inner city high school to coach football. So it's problematic by today's standards. There's this moment in it where she's proving herself to her football team and running cross country and outruns everyone. And at the very end, one of her players is just like, fuck you. And she says, fuck you, what? And he says, fuck you, coach. And now the movie's going on. It's such a moment of the different ways of navigating these power structures. And I think it's especially interesting in that movie because two groups are outside of the dominant power structure. But whatever, I can geek out on 80s movies all day, not this conversation. What this leads me to, though, is as we're talking about all of this, we started at the beginning, what does executive presence mean? And moving through all the ways that it's been weaponized, or how we did or did not fit into it, and in many ways how we've found power taking different pathways to either work outside or within. So my question is, do we need to get rid of executive presence as an idea? And if so, what do we replace it with?
I vote yes. Yes, full yes. I've never been into that term, into the word, into the idea. I think it really tries to encapsulate something that could be broken down by skills. Like, what skill do you need if you're presenting to a group? What skill do you need if you're working as a team? What skill do you need if you're leading a company? And truly breaking it down, it obviously also depends on what role you're taking. Because I do think that idea of executive presence is fueled by this ideal person. And that is just an exclusionary term in its inception. So how can we break it down by tangible skills that folks can work up to and can have? So I don't think we should replace it with anything, honestly, just get rid of it.
I agree. Building off of that, I think about this a lot when it comes to culture, because, executive presence is just an extension of the culture we have around leadership. And so I think most organizations fall into what I call a culture of autopilot, which is driven by a couple of key values, which is conformity, toxic competition, and perfectionism. Those really drive what we believe makes a good leader, makes a good organization. So how do we move away from those values into what I call a culture of curiosity, which is acceptance, collaboration, and experimentation? And those sound simple, but there's a lot of resistance to genuine acceptance of difference and not seeing it as a threat, genuine collaboration and not thinking everything's a zero-sum game and that we can't share resources or information, or, being able to experiment and fail and try things for the first time and, allow ourselves to get a little messy. I think driving things around values and really thinking, what are the values that are driving our decisions? What are the values that are driving our creative process? That isn't just about fear and scarcity and perfectionism and conformity and toxic competition, that allows us to collaborate together. I think that is what should replace executive presence, because that's really what can lead people from point A to point B. Like, if we're going to make a new norm, how do we make a new campfire that people can rally around and get excited about? I think we focus so much on the problem instead of the solutions. We know what the problems are. We've been talking about these problems for a very long time. I mean, we got papers, we have books, we have taught. I mean, at this point, we know it's broken. So what is the alternative? And I think it is getting clear on what our new values are, and then learning how to express those specifically in decision-making, communication, and the creativity that we have. So that's what I'm driven by and the things that I love teaching, because I'm tired of talking about the problems. Let's talk about some new solutions and give people something new and exciting to rally around besides money, which is a tool, it's not a purpose. I say that all the time. And also moving away from being afraid of uncertainty and afraid of newness. I think there could be a way to embrace it and to be curious and to learn. And I think we're seeing that now because people are being forced into it. But I would love us to be able to do that outside of a pandemic and not be forced to do those things because folks is dying and we have no choice, right? Like, it would be great for people to be able to be more proactive and less reactive, essentially.
I'd like to talk about how we hire people in my company. So it's a design firm, and I don't know where people went to school. I don't know what's on their resume. I've never seen them. but I can tell so many stories about each of them. So what they brought with them when they started working here is stories. I mean, one of them used to travel to Siberia and unearth baby mammoths. One of them used to be a teenage power lifter in Italy. One of them used to, I mean, like crazy stories, like all of them. And they have many, right? And when you hear that, I mean, for my part at least, I want to work with those people. I want to unearth a lot of what's going on and why they've been to so many places and try so many extreme things, and I want to inject all of that passion and that curiosity inside of the work that we do. Now, so it seems pretty evident to talk about that because I run a creative business, but you'd be surprised that most creative business that do what we do are so predictable. They just do the same thing again and again. They're not untalented, very talented, but just like, shoot me now.
Right. Or they're doing creative things with a predictable recruiting format.
Exactly. And the problem with that is that you have a lot of competent, stagnant things happening in the world. I'm not interested in competent and stagnant. I'm interested in extraordinary and surprising. Right? And the only way you can get there is by surrounding yourself with people who don't care about what we're talking about today. Executive presence. How is that? They don't care. Like using the word boss is like it's not permitted here. Like who's the boss? And that leveling of everything. And one of the best ways to level a project is to walk in a room and say, "Hi, my name is so and so, and I know nothing." Once we have that understanding that I know nothing, then we can start building.
I love that.
Amazing. As soon as you're, let's say, go back to my law days, back to 1996. There was a lawyer in the research department of Osler in Toronto, and they clearly hired for talent, and they did not have in the research group. The rest of us had to have our executive presence, but in the research group, you hired for the brilliance. And there was this one guy, he used to walk into work. He walked to work every day, and he would walk into work sometime after lunch. That's when his day would start, and his day would end probably around 4 a.m. This was in 1995, people, like, okay. He had a Sex Pistols poster on his wall, and he was freaking brilliant. He was the one you took all your challenges to. And they were like, you know what, just let him operate within his brilliance. Like, we won't try and make him wear a suit or put his papers in a briefcase, because that's not gonna work for this guy. And the others who worked in the research department were that way as well, but he always stuck out. One of the other things I was thinking of, should we get rid of executive presence? Absolutely. I think when we talk about these things, words that were being thrown out before, not polished, not leadership material. That's, when I look at people and say, please describe to me, in non-gendered terms, what it is you're talking about. Because I don't understand the language you have used. Please describe specific instances or behaviors. So that I can understand what it is, why you do not think this person is up to snuff. Like, they're not making, but don't use, I think in one example, someone said, well, I don't think she's up to it. I don't like her because she's a bitch. And I'm like, I don't understand that, because it was describing a woman leader. I'm like, oh, you don't like her leader because she thinks she's a bitch. Like, please describe to me the actions and behaviors, because I don't understand this. And when they did describe the actions and behaviors, I could agree with their final assessment, but I needed the long answer, not the short answer.
So Julie, I want to give you a chance to jump in, but if if not, we've got one more kind of wrap up question for everybody. But Julie, do you want to say anything before we do the wrap up question?
I did like 2 seconds ago and I forgot, so it'll probably come out right as we get halfway through. Oh, I do remember actually. It really just says, one of the beauties about being able to run vital voice training is, things like, I lose my words, I say the wrong words, I say John Baldwin instead of James Baldwin. I absolutely know the difference, but that's something physiologically about me that working in other industries has been people thinking I wasn't too sharp or too bright, which is not true. It just gets stuck as it comes out sometimes. And I think it's such a global thing because it has to do with neurotypical. It has to do with all of these areas and arenas that we have unequal playing fields in. So I'm so glad to hear all of your thoughts on this, and it makes me really hopeful for, I say hopeful because 2020 was so brutal, but we'll go with hopeful for what we can all still continue to create. So with that, yes, I will hand it to you, Katie.
So the final question that kind of just came to me as I'm listening to all of this brilliance in the room here. I agree with you guys 100%. I think we need to throw out the term executive presence. I think it's, as Christina often says, it's musty, it's crusty, it's old, it does not work for us anymore. So I don't know if we want to build a new term. I don't know if we want to say leadership presence. I don't know if we just want to say presence, which actually I think the idea of thinking about your presence is deeply interesting and gives us so much room to play and gives us room for intentionality. So what I want to ask the brilliant women in this room is, when it comes to your presence, what do you think? What is one thing that you think you bring to the table that is just fucking brilliant? Like, where do you really shine in terms of your presence? And then one thing that you particularly love seeing in other people's presence when you are with them. So whoever wants to start with that prompt, your particular level of genius and what you want to see in other people.
We're all like sitting here. So you know what, I'm going to start with the second part first. What I have loved and love seeing in particular is younger women, I'm thinking younger than me, younger women just owning who they are. And that to me, like seeing that, and it's not like me looking back at my career and thinking, God, I wish I had that earlier, though I do wish that, but I am where I am. But for them to be able to have the strength and the conviction of their choices, and realizing like when they're calling out things, or they're having that agency, and maybe that's, because I think part of this with presence is you make a choice, and this living with the choices and owning who they are, that I'm just, more of that, please, and let's not diminish that by forcing women in particular into, these leadership executive presence boxes that don't serve anyone, but particularly don't serve them. I think at this point in my life, the strength is like, hey, I've hit an age where for most people I am invisible as someone that people market to, as someone that people would hire in terms of employment, in terms of a whole lot of things. So there's a whole lot of, I do not give a flying, what, at this point, because, hey, when in essence, for a whole lot of society, you become invisible, you can be whatever you want, because why not? And so that ability to finally kind of be true and think about how can I at this point redefine what it means to be a woman of this age and at this stage in life, and what is possible. And the more I get pushed back on, like letting my hair go gray or admitting my age, the more I get that stuff, the more I'm like, it's coming out louder now. So.
That's amazing. Thanks, Kelly. So to answer both of your questions, Casey, my superpower will sound very funny to a lot of people. So I have this very extreme ability to go from empathetic to sociopathic and back and forth. Everybody who knows me very well knows exactly what I'm talking about. So that's question number one. Question number two is
In our next episode, right, our next session,
I
we
need
will
to
elaborate on
know
all
what
that.
happens in those stages. What's the go mode?
Awesome.
And the answer to the second question is somewhat related to that. Is I have been in awe of people who are neurodiverse, who think differently and see the world differently, express themselves differently, finally express themselves out in the open, right? It's not shame anymore. It's not, I don't fit into this mold that says that a normal person does that. I want more of that neurodiversity. I want more of that spectrum of humanity out there.
I love that. Ooh, y'all are dropping some gems today. I would say in terms of what I admire in other people is contradictions. I think many times the things we think that shouldn't be paired together can actually be a powerful disruptive way of authentic expressions, whether it's like Kehinde Wiley, who's putting Black men in Timbs in these like neo-Gothic, beautiful backgrounds that you would never expect those people to be in, or Megan Thee Stallion, who just came out with her song Thought-ish, and essentially is showing a man who's, slut shaming her like on a computer, who's like watching all her videos, and like the subjugation and the essentially sort of the satire of challenging what's around us through pairings that we wouldn't typically see. And another aspect of that is owning people who fully own their stories, who aren't afraid to talk about the hard parts or the messy parts or the adversities or the things that have shaped them in their perspective and who they are today. I think people who pretend to be perfect all the time or have everything together, who can't own their full narrative and the redemptive parts of it, the challenging parts of it, the enlightening parts of it, are missing out on one of the most beautiful parts of life, which is we all are living very unique narratives, and we each have something to share and to teach and to really instill in other people by sharing those full parts of our stories. Then I would say about myself, I probably have a superpower for synthesizing really complicated ideas into sort of very tangible, side of digestible information and stories. I have a performance background, so I love to sing and be humorous and kind of disarm people, like really challenging topics. I get people to feel joy and excitement about. And I think that's a really delicate dance, especially when you're talking about race or class or very complex, very challenging, emotionally fraught subjects. And I think that's something I had to learn for survival from a very young age. I was sort of like, how do I survive this sort of tumult of, I had shitty parents as well. I relate, Fanon, when you were talking about that. So like being in an environment where I had that, and then, I called myself an extreme minority growing up religiously and politically. So I had to learn how to navigate all these different systems and survive. And I think it came from that, being able to use humor and performance and kind of engagement in surprising and exciting ways to get people to open up to things they typically wouldn't. And I hope I can continue to do that, because for a long time I didn't think it was a superpower, and I would just do it just because people were like, oh, word, that's interesting, like I love that, how you're presenting that or how you tell these ideas, like tell me more. And so I've embraced that. The more I've embraced that as I've gotten older, the more powerful I've become and the more I've been able to have an impact.
I love that, Christina. And of what I admire of others, I feel very similarly to you, of those folks that know their stories, know their narratives, and can really own that. I admire people that have broken out of the system, that it's not, sorry, that's my calendar, folks that aren't tied to, yes, this perfectionism, this capitalistic society where you produce and you have to be this and you have to be that. I like folks that can be really in touch with things that we've let go of, like intuition, what makes us human, how we're with our bodies, and bringing that into the workspace is so powerful, because it is not what we are asked to do. We're asked to strip our humanity. We're asked to just be a brain or fingers typing, and being able to recognize the humanity in others is so important and powerful. So I really admire that when folks bring that to the space. And for my superpower, I would say is my warmth. And I know Casey and Julie have heard this before, but particularly in the space of having really hard conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion with executives that aren't used to having these conversations, being able to bring warmth to the space, making people feel comfortable, because I truly want to see everyone and see that, we may be very different, but we may have like a 1% of similarity, and let's see that, and let's actually break that down. So that's what I would say mine is.
And did you have shitty parents too? Because so then we could be 4 for 4.
I did it. I do like my parents.
If I ever write my book, good lessons I learned from shitty people, Christina Fanam, I will be reaching out to say.
I love that. Hey, listen, I like them. They got their problems,
Well, this was absolutely everything that I dreamed that it would be and more. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your ideas and your personalities and your stories. The best thing about Vital Voice training to me is getting to meet extraordinary people. And we've met so many of them, Julie, right? So many extraordinary people.
Just like I know really cool people.
Right?
this whole time, just listening to everyone, and your ability to also respond to not just solving the problem and to jump around and play in the pool of the issues is so deeply meaningful to me in terms of that hopefulness I was talking about. Because it's those people that are just like, I know how to fix it, but do you really? So I just appreciate all of you. And Fanam, I think it was you that said something about I don't know. That has been a theme that's come up a lot in our work, where the hardest thing new leaders are struggling with saying is I don't know, because of the various repercussions of I don't know. And so, a lot of our strategy is in around reframing I don't know to it's not that you know nothing, or what do you know, or changing the way we think about that wonderful place of openness and blank slate especially when we work in industries that are all about new ideas. So that's a very long-winded thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
So I wanted to say that both Casey and Julie, you are extraordinary yourself. I mean, what you're doing here, what you've been doing with Vital Voice training, the way I speak today is really thanks to you. And I'm sure that's the case for everybody that you've worked with. This is huge. This is, you are redefining leadership, you're redefining authenticity, executive presence today, or eliminating it, and moving power to the place it needs to be tomorrow.
Cheers. That's the goal. That is the goal. Oh my gosh. I can't wait for our audience to hear this. I can't wait for them to meet you all and hear your wisdom and your brilliance. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll wrap it up here.
Thank you for such good questions. This was awesome.
Awesome.
It's great meeting everyone.
Great having you all here. Thank you all so much.
How brilliant are these women? You know us. You know that we get very, very excited about our guests, but we know really cool people, right, Julie?
They're amazing. I thank you to every single one of you who participated in this panel to share your brilliance, and I think address a very important topic that isn't getting talked about enough.
Absolutely. So in order to address this topic, as we said, we're diving deep on it. We wanted to design our very, very first group course. We debuted it this spring in early 2021 with a cohort of brilliant women from all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds, and we really explored together this idea of executive presence. So the course is called Power Play, Beyond Executive Presence, and we're bringing it back this fall. And we would love for you to be a part of it if it's the right thing for you.
We wanted to design a course that used our extensive tool set of acting tools and voice coaching and our experience with clients over the past 7 years to develop something that really helps people discover their own way of moving through the world with power. And this is power that comes from within, that's about taking space, both physical space and time space. It's about the energy you walk into a room with. It's about how you present yourself and sit down and join conversations. All of this stuff gets overlooked a lot with executive presence advice articles, which your understated jewelry is amazing, but these are the deeper things that really get in the way. And we want to teach it in a way that's not dependent on other people granting you this power in order to experience it. And if you know Vital Voice Training, you'll know the way we look at power is not about power over. It's about inclusive power, how to show up to shine your light so bright that it helps everyone else shine their light as well. This is what we were going for. The first course, as Casey said, was just so beautiful to watch. And we are running it again coming up this fall.
You can apply for cohort number 2 of Power Play on our website, www.vitalvoicetraining.com/the course. Obviously, we will put that link in the show notes. We can't wait to meet a new cohort and to dive more deeply into power and how we portray it in the world and what it can do when we do it in a way that feels like it honors us. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first ever video episode of Voice Is. Hopefully we will be back with some more of these this year as we continue to have these amazing conversations with smart, cool people. If you want to find Vital Voice Training, you can find us on Instagram at Vital Voice Training, on Twitter at vital_voice, and our website, www.vitalvoicetraining.com. We would love to continue the conversation with you. If you have ideas about what you want to explore or people you think we should talk to, reach out to us, drop us a line. We want to hear from you. And in the meantime, keep enjoying, exploring, and playing with executive presence in the world. And remember, your voice, your body, and your ideas deserve to take space in the world. Bye.